What's happening, everybody? Question for you. Have you ever thought about changing out your bike's front forks? I decided to give it a shot on the B Explorer bike from Be Cool Bikes. They have just a very basic front shock on there, and I wanted to upgrade it, and I chose an air shock. I'll link it below so you know which one I bought. But I've never done front forks before, and I'm hopefully going to tell you in this video some important things you need to know, because it is definitely not as easy as I thought it was going to be. I thought I would just pop the old ones out, pop the new ones in, boom, you're done. Not the case. And again, I am not a bicycle technician or mechanic or cyclist. I've never taken apart a headset before. So there's some things that you got to know, because it's just not pop them off, pop new ones on. There's some things that I ran into that were not making it work. So let me spin the camera around and I'll show you everything I'm talking about, and hopefully this will help you if you're like me, you're just an average person, never done this before. There's some important things to keep in mind. So let's take a look. Okay, so here's our B Explorer bike, and these are the old forks right here that I took off. I just left the fender connected on there, and we're changing out to these right here, which are an air fork, and there's the name of them for you. I'll link them below. I think they're like 120, 130 bucks, something like that. And it's got an air nozzle there, so you can dial it up to your liking. And we're gonna try to put these on here, and here's what I ran into. So on the bottom of the headset, right, there's some bearings which allow the steering to turn, and they look like this. I took this off of there. This is what goes on the bottom here. It slides up inside there, and I just took a screwdriver, put it down through here, and popped this bearing out, right? Initially what I did was, I took these old forks out and I just slid the new forks in, hoping it would just work. It didn't work, of course. And after some investigation, I found that this bearing that goes in here, well, it's got to have the matching other side of the bearing that looks like this. And this is called a crown race. Never heard that term in my life until I tried to do this, but this crown race goes on here. It was on this fork, and they go on there super duper tight. All right, you got to like hammer it down on there. And I realized, okay, well, I need that piece on this fork, because it did not come with that. It doesn't have any bearing adapter thing on top of the fork. And I tried buying one on Amazon, and of course it wasn't the right fit because I have no idea what I'm doing. So I took everything into the bike shop and explained my problem, and they kind of educated me on that I need this thing right here. I need a crown race. So they took a measurement and ordered me one, and I didn't have any faith that it was going to be right either. So I decided to try to take the crown race off of this fork, and as you can see, I was successful in getting it off, although it was not easy. It is on there really tight. And I Googled and found some videos of how to remove a crown race, and I found a guy who did it using razor blades. Yes, razor blades. So this crown race goes onto that fork, right? And it's hammered down flush with this here. And to get underneath it, to pry it up, you just jam razor blades under there like that. And you use a hammer to tap them in underneath there, and then you tap one in on this other side, and then you tap another one in over here. And it just slowly works this crown race, up a little bit until you can get a screwdriver under there. And then I just popped it up, and finally it came off. But it was not easy, and you can see here that I damaged the forks. There's razor blade cuts all around here, which I don't really care, because I'm not going to use these forks, and if there's scratches on it, it doesn't really bother me at all. If you're trying to save this fork and use it somewhere else, maybe you don't want to do that way. That's not the way to do it. There's a much better way to take this off, I'm sure, but I don't like to wait around or use the appropriate methods. I just figure it out on my own, and I got it off there. So now I'm hoping to put the thing back together. I just need to put this down onto the new fork, and then put this bearing back in the headset, and then boom, I got a matched set, right? And it should work, and everything should turn appropriately, and hopefully this will be done. And I'm doing this as practice because I bought new forks for the Citizen 3.0 bike as well, which those forks are a little bit more complicated because they have like a double crown setup. So I wanted to try a simpler fork swap first, and get the hang of it before I try to do it to the Citizen bike. So this, we're trying it on the B Explorer bike. It's gonna look pretty cool. The orange on the fork is gonna match the orange on the bike pretty well. So let's get it put back together and see if it works. Oh, and before I forget, there's one other thing that you should be aware of too. There's this right here, this little threaded nut inside the fork. When I got the new forks, this was just a hollow tube, and it didn't even come with this. It's called a star nut in there, and it looks like this. So it didn't even come with this, and you need this inside there so the top cap on the handlebars has something to screw into. So I had to go out and buy a star nut as well, and then put it down inside here. And the way I did it was I just put a screwdriver down through the center and then tapped it with a hammer to tap it down in there nice and evenly, because you want it in there straight, so when you go to screw that screw down in there, it's not crooked. So you're going to need one of these as well. So if you buy new forks, you're going to need a star nut. Keep that in mind. It didn't come with it. I think some forks do. The other fork came with a star nut. And then you're going to need a crown race that matches the bearing on your headset. There you go. Hope that is some useful information. I didn't know any of this going in, but I'm glad I'm figuring it out before trying it on the other bike. But let's get this thing back together. All right, I got the crown race onto the new fork. I just took a screwdriver and just slowly started going around in a circle, hammering it down, sliding it down and down and down until it's meeting the fork. And I left a tiny little gap there so you can see what I was talking about, the razor blade. You just kind of tuck it underneath here and hammer it in, and that helps to pry it up slowly when you're trying to take it off. Not the best method, but hey, it worked. So, but it's on there now. Should work. Let's throw it together. Almost out of daylight, but we are back in action. They are on there, they fit, they turn, they function. Yes, finally, after a week of this bike being in pieces, it's finally back together and functioning. I mean, they look pretty good on there. So now we've got air forks on the B Explorer bike, and it was quite complicated, honestly. I mean, if you don't want to problem solve and do all that stuff I did, you'd probably be better off just to take it to your local bike shop, have them order you a set of forks in the correct, headset pieces and everything you need, and install it for you so it's on there and functioning perfectly. This took me a minute. It took me a minute to figure it out. So, but I got it. I'd say the rear shock was actually 100 times simpler to install than the forks. I thought it would be the opposite, but the forks were a little bit challenging. So there you go. Hope you found that helpful, informative. If you did, consider hitting subscribe. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.